Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining, hopefully what will be the most playful session of this conference. You're in the room with the Lego group, and I'm here to share a little bit about what we do in this iconic Danish company that I am fortunate enough to call my employer. So my name is Rasmus. I am a Copenhagener, if my English dialect didn't give it away. And I head up what is called Cloud Foundation and Developer Experience at the Lego Group. And just happened to be that I'm a cloud hugger and a dev nerd, so this would probably be my dream job. They're gonna drag me out of there for sure. The Lego Group, fairly old company. We are from 1932, so we've been around. But that was the year we started making toys. And I hope you're all familiar with our products. So you can raise your hand if you know our products. All right, okay, so we can skip that slide. Good, but what I hope I can open up a little bit today, and I hope you're curious about, is what's the inner workings of the Lego Group, and why is this important with what we're doing on APIs and cloud. So that's it. It's not going to be a super technical session, but I did mix in some generative AI because it's that year. No blockchain, I promise you that. And a bit of fun, hopefully. And hopefully, if I'm not too talkative, we will have time for a few questions, right? It's not a big audience today. So I hope that's okay with you. No live coding, but opening the doors, sharing a little bit of what works, and maybe also, if you're keen, what doesn't. So let's get started. It's almost lunch, half asleep. It's a very expensive video, so I have to show it. All right. So why cloud and APIs? And I think this is true for any company out there. I'm going to start a little bit with the why. What's the reason behind our massive investment in this? And just to give you the context of the massive investment we're doing, we have tripled our digital organization over the last 2 years, opened offices in Copenhagen and expanded in all other locations for our digital teams. I'll cover why that is important for the Lego Group. Digitalization is nothing new, right? And we've heard this buzzword of digital transformation for years now. But what is it that does it for us, and why is it important for us? I'll talk a little bit about the digital operating model and how we are trying to build loosely coupled architectures that enables this. The products, the architecture, then there's a quiz, because I brought some product samples. And I know you all have your Zen moments, so why not combine it with a bonsai tree? And I'm not bringing them back, okay? So we'll raffle them away. There's a quiz in the end, which is something I might have said, or I should have said at least. So if you stay awake, there's a chance you can win it, okay? Good. And hopefully, I think I have about 10 minutes for questions, but I'm not going to promise anything because you look like you are curious, and so are we. Good. A few facts about us. The Lego Group is an international company. We are in 120 plus countries. We are closing in on being 30,000 people because the company is growing and growing and growing. We just gave our half-year result yesterday, which just underpins our priorities. We have a good first half of the year, outpacing the toy market, which is at the end of the day what we do. But it gives us an opportunity to invest in digital and expanding our capacity. We have these 4 digital locations as I showed before. Now that's us, right? That's the context we're in. But why are we doing this? What is it that makes it for us? And why is it important for us to bolster with cloud, with APIs, with AI at the end of the day? And for us, it's all about business agility. And I think it is for you as well. I don't know you all, some of you, but not all. This is really about bringing that business agility to the company. It's absolutely foundational for what we do, and it should give us this seamless access to data, compute, and networking, internet, right? So we really push for us to drive business agility through digital. And if we look at the core architecture principles that enables this, it is about having a loosely coupled infrastructure. You enable that by having APIs. And then since it's the year of generative AI, well, we need to figure out how we can accelerate our development with these efforts. So business agility is the driver. And that's what any company wants, I hope. Any of you represent a company that would love to slow down, just take it easy? I'm tempted to say government companies, but let's not go there. No, of course, there can be businesses that is there to maintain the status quo, right? And that's also okay. But for us, we really want this, right? We are leaders of the toy market, and we have invented categories in the toy market. And we would actually like to remain the leaders and keep inventing categories. And you can only do that if you can respond to market demands. So the agility for us means the ability to experiment, constantly experiment, trying out new ideas. That's also fun. But there's also the need for speed and sometimes versus quality. Have you met this paradigm before? I can do it fast, but then I'm gonna, that's a bit tricky one. And then lastly, I would say it's about the newness. We call it novelty. So how can you constantly bring a fresh experience to a continuously demanding consumer market, right? You have to keep up there. You can't just be a business like you were 10 years ago. And again, we provide the largest portfolio of new products every year. We can do that because we are growing. We can bring out more interesting themes and brands and experiences with our products. But I have to admit that there's also something tricky here being in the toy industry. And that's very much for our domain, right, what we're doing. But I don't know if any of you know a kid. Yeah, there's a few that have seen a kid before. Okay, and have you seen a kid with a screen? Yes, a few kids with a few screens, right? This is a magnet for attention, right? And if any of you have seen a parent as well and talked to a parent, you will see that they're also quite concerned about the quite strong algorithms that are pulling our kids into screens. We strongly believe of digital play. You started with a game, right? But I also think we are deeply rooted in the physical play, so the physical brick and the Lego theme that you all know. So how do we remain relevant and not a competitor to the screen, right? How do we start mixing up the physical and the digital play for kids? Now, we are all kids in this room, right? We just happen to have grown-up responsibilities as well. But how do we capture those kids so we can at least provide an alternative to screen-only play? That's very keen for us. And we are increasingly needing to invest in this. And actually, there's no book about it because I think somewhat we have mastered it in some places. We have also failed a lot. But there's no one that masters it to perfection. And again, that's where we want to lead, that category of mix and physical and virtual play, but in a culture of experiments. Now, I did say we were an old lady, right? 91 years old. Have you worked for an old enterprise? Are they quick? Willing to experiment? Well, we are, of course. That's why we want the agility, right? No, so getting the experiments out there, and the example I brought today, and a change in the culture that we are delivering a digital experience is what we call the Lego Builder app. The Lego Builder app is something that's free to download, and it can give you, instead of the booklet you get in every set, you have a digital version of that. And so this app was launched for that purpose. However, it gave us a platform to start experimenting with play. And I just need to mute. Let's go to the next slide, because this one has awful music. So the Builder app is this physical and digital experience where you can, as a family, build a Lego set. Now, each booklet has a QR code. You can scan that with the app and choose your building experience. Now, we found out that kids, they love being able to see a 3D model of what they're building so that they can choose that experience. Grown-ups, they do like just flipping pages, like they back in the 90s, right? And then we introduced something called social build, where you can, as a family or with friends, actually sit and build a Lego set, up to 4 people, and just share that building experience between you and have a social experience instead of a solo play experience, right? Which is really, really cool because we're changing it up with digital. Now, that was an experiment, and it was awful in the beginning, load times of minutes, and kids, they were going crazy and whatnot. But we dared, and we tried, and we refined, and now today, this is a core experience of a Lego set. Most of the, not smaller ones, bigger ones, they come with this experience. And we iterated on that, and now you can have a building experience where there's a story that you can enact with cars driving and catching animals, and then you're flipping to the next page. So we're trying to give a whole different experience with the screen, but still in the physical play experience. So I encourage you to go down to the Lego store. You probably have a set at home that you can take apart, and try it out on real kids. They're gonna love it. First of all, time with you, what's not to like? It's very enjoyable, and it is tested on kids, by the way. So that's just one example. We have multiple examples of us growing brave, trying out things, while this one that's up here is deeply rooted in the company. So every new joiner, they kind of get a tattoo, rub-off tattoo, of course, with this mantra that's up here. And it doesn't really translate well, but I try to translate it from Danish to English. So it says, the best is not too good. And you can see our English translation is that only the best is good enough. But that's the quality bar we're working against, right? It has to be, well, not perfect, but it cannot be too good. So how do you live in a world of experimentation? Trying out new things, trying to reinvent yourself all the time, while having to meet that quality bar. That is difficult, I will admit that. But we need speed and quality. We need to have playful and fun experiences and do experiments, right? Be brave. Great. So that's the why, right? Hopefully you gave a little bit of an idea of what is difficult for our company. Now, our response is many things, but one of them is digital. And what we basically did was we turned off the IT department. Away with that. And now I'm a little bit opinion about IT departments because they are often driven with cost, drive down, security, drive up, and that gives you one big no head. That's all you can say, right? No, I don't have the money, and you're introducing changes, that's a risk, right? So I think the best any company that wants to go digital can do is disassemble the classic IT department. Now, don't worry, the people are still there. They're great engineers, right? But the construct that you have someone who is responsible for IT is going to kill any good digital intention. So no more IT department. And then everything is product teams instead. Now, what many enterprises have done, and I'm guilty there as well, has been trying to build digital on top, right? You just add, oh, we need a e-commerce over here, we need some marketing engines over here, but the core is still the IT department. And they are grumpy. Grumpy, yes, because they don't get to have the fun, fancy team dinners and build awesome stuff and get highlighted at town halls and all that stuff, right? They are there maintaining the status quo, driving down cost, driving down risk. So everything is product teams. Everything can be as hipster as it likes to be and express themselves with awesome features and enablement. Every team needs to also live as a modern architecture. So build on cloud, expose your services via APIs, no more tickets, no more ServiceNow stuff. And every team, we have ServiceNow, don't worry. I'm painting a glamorous picture here. And every team needs to be responsible for dev, security, and ops, right? What we call DevSecOps. You build it, you run it. And then we talk about being product-led. So everything is product, architecture, loosely coupled, bounded context, all that stuff you know. And then engineering-led, which is about hiring awesome people. So I just did a pat on my mind. No, so get in great engineers, right? And focus on engineering, because you need the bulk of engineers. You need to have this in-house capacity if you need to innovate, right? Yeah, that's it. So let me take you out of my fun world and into the world of Gartner. Now, Gartner can be awesome, and I actually like this illustration here, just to talk, as we're leaving this topic, talk about how you can also organize, right? In a classic enterprise, you have what is called plan, build, run. So you have people deciding, and then you have another group of people there, the builders, and then you have the last group, which is the IT department, is the runners, right? And that's really good for control, but it's not so good for speed. You can also have decentralized IT, so you have business units having their own IT functions. That's also great, but you don't get to reuse capabilities, right? And often you end up with siloed experiences for your customers. And what this slide recommends is that you go to these, I call them stream-aligned teams. So you have product teams that are directly coupled to business outcomes, and you have them produce, of course, increments of value, but still using these shared capabilities, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the shared capabilities in a second. So a little more context. Bear with me. I'm going to get into the architecture soon. So we are being product-led. And today we have 220 plus product teams. They all comprised of a product manager role, can be an employee, and then a product team. Product team has engineers, has someone who is people responsible. We call it a competency leader because it's about building on the skills of the team. And then we have a lead engineer. And that's very important for us because we want to build careers that are managerial and technical excellence. And you need to go all the way up without having to manage people. Right? I see a few nods here. Yes, I would like that. People leadership is not for everyone, right? So we believe career path needs to go that way as well. And then product teams have OKRs. So that comes out of the Google way of managing things, which is objectives and key results. And we have those by quarter, which is what we promise our customers, consumers, we will deliver in the next quarter. And that's it, right? We don't have project managers or SAFe frameworks or Scale Agile or all these big machines or PMO offices. We just agree on the OKRs, quarter over quarter, that's what we deliver. And every product has a vision and a roadmap because you know everything that goes outside of the next couple of sprints. We can guess, we have an idea, we have a wish list, but actually we don't know what the priorities are. And lastly, and I think this is pretty cool, we have in each product what we call a TCO, or total cost of ownership. Every product has their own budget. It's not the same as the party budget. Don't mix that up. But they're actually responsible for their own cost. So if they want to waste money on cloud resources or not optimize the architecture and just pay a lot to the cloud providers, they can do that, right? If they're making awesome business value, that's okay. And prioritizing features. But it could be at one point, they could optimize their cloud spend and therefore improve the architecture and therefore afford to hire another engineer or something like that. And lastly, very lastly, every product has a user group. So we are a little bit special because our customers are not always the consumers. That's a different paradigm, right? But when you enjoy, you have to be mindful that actually your consumers, they're about AI. And not only are they protected by very good legal legislation, I appreciate that, and we do as well as a company. But remember the quality metrics before, only the best is good enough. We want to do better than legislation, right? So we, when you interact with kids, we actually don't want to know anything. We don't want to know what your name, what your preferences, etc. Right? We just want you an entity so we can give you an experience around that. That's very important for us, right? But how do you do that in this world, right? I don't want to know who you are, but if you like police stations, we should give you police station games when you log into the app. That's really, really difficult. Another problem can be parental consent. Now, parental consent, you say, that's easy. I have that on my iPhone, right? Yeah. You know how easy it is to create an account on anything, right? You just need an email address and then you can have Snapchat even though you're 3 years old. Okay, 5. but you can, right? And there you're exposed to the whole internet. So how do we work with parental consent so parents can feel in control of a personalized experience? And then no marketing. But that's the law of the land, right? You're not allowed to direct market to kids, which is really cool. I really appreciate the legislation around here. But that's the paradigm we live in. Good. I went on a tangent there, didn't I? I wanted to talk about user groups. So that's the customers. Those are the ones with credit cards. We like them. We have the consumers, then we have partners. We have stores, but actually most of our products are sold through partners. And then we have colleagues, which is me, I guess, and everyone that works for the Lego Group. So products needs to understand who their target is and don't blur them, because then it becomes really complicated. Now, enough about that. Let's talk about architecture. That's why you're here, right? Want to see some APIs, some Gen AI. I really should add that to the title. Then we will fill up the room. Gen AI. How many did see a Gen AI session this week? Any of you? How many of you believe that Gen AI is the next big thing? Just me? Okay, I will change my demo then. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I think it's so cool. I will try to convince you, but from my personal opinion. Architecture for us. I need to tell you something that I find really cool. Do you work for a company that has a strategy? It can be IT strategy, cloud strategy. Feel free to raise your hand. You can also pretend that's okay. Now, I'm going to brag for a second. Our strategies they are inner source, they're open source. So we write strategies in GitHub. And then you can feel free to disagree with it, or you can also agree with it, and make a pull request if you don't agree. So the way we have for example, our cloud strategy is, I own it, that's fine. I'm the maintainer of the repo, but anyone can suggest a change, and we treat that as either with an issue or a pull request and discuss it and then adopt it. So no more top-down anything. It's actually all the engineers that drives the strategy and the direction, right? When we need a new tool for developers, developer suggests, we discuss, we agree, we go do, right? And that's the same for these architecture pillars. For us, API and our API strategy needs to be open, inclusive, and then we go do. Cloud strategy, it's the same. Of course, we have a need for data. When you are an old company, you have a lot of data, and it's unstructured, and it's everywhere, and you don't know who owns it. That's just a fact, right? That's something you need to fix if you want to excel in the future and succeed with generative AI. I'm going to continue. Bear with me. So a company like ours, we came from a classic architecture. Now, see what I did there? Good. It took hours to build this slide. You have to like sit and align them. Anyways, a classic architecture, you build very tightly coupled things, right? You network and compute are tightly coupled, right? Compute and applications tightly coupled. Especially when it comes to integration. That's when you do your point-to-point integration over your protected network, so over your internal network, and one great example is direct database connectivity, right? But everything is so sticky. Nothing is loosely coupled, and every time you have to make changes, it takes forever, if ever you succeed with it, right? And the response of the classic IT department is, of course, to make change advisory boards, have a room of no-sayers and whatnot, to drive down risk. Now, of course, containerization and earlier virtualization fixed all this, right? Not really, right? You still had tightly coupled connections between your applications and your data backends, and you only solved a bit of the equation, right? You still have very fixed infrastructure configuration in your lower layer here, and you still have very fixed application configuration in the upper layers. And what we really want to try to achieve, illustrated with Duplo bricks, is that you build on, of course, the highest possible abstraction. So Kubernetes is great if you need all those features. I personally am love working with serverless and cloud platform capabilities because then I need to do less. But build on the highest possible abstraction, and then you build in your bounded context microservices, right? And serve integrations via APIs, whether it being north-south or east-west. In this context here, it doesn't really matter. APIs needs to be the leading integrator, and I'll uncover some of our principles here. Cloud is great because it's truly multi-tenant. There's been many attempts for being multi-tenant, both with virtualization and with containerization. But I think our cloud providers, the big ones, they have nailed it because they're kind of their core business, where you get true multi-tenant, so you can have a tenant that is as small as your microservice, right? And it doesn't, it's not affected by noisy neighbors. Great. So what I thought we would do now is dive a little bit into what we are doing with cloud and APIs, and then nothing about generative AI. Promise? So first off, we call it CloudFirst. Actually, we don't call it that anymore. But we used to call it CloudFirst. But the idea here is the mindset is about using cloud and then reducing the long-tail technology landscape. So now some of you were brave enough to admit you worked for old companies or companies with experience. I think that's the inclusive way of saying it. And so do I. And when I joined a couple of years ago, we had technology that dates back from the 90s. We might have bought new versions of the 1990s architecture, right? Like, I'm not going to say it. I'm still embarrassed by it. But we had a lot of old technology. I'm sure you have a mainframe somewhere or some really old SAP systems that's in the corner running your core business processes and you have no idea to fix it. That's a long tail technology, right? Because you don't want it. If you were building from the beginning, you wouldn't buy it again. You would do things differently. But it's just been so complex to get out of it, right? And what I suggest everyone do is just draw up that long tail. So yes, we want to do serverless, we want to do Kubernetes, all that stuff. But that's just adding on without cutting off in the other end. And then just illustrate that clearly and then start salamming it away by retiring these legacy systems. And a smart way of doing that, no, maybe not smart, but an efficient way of doing it is get out of data centers and all that stuff because it just caters for the perception that running these old systems are acceptable. For us, we removed commodity hosting, so we still have a classic data center. What's really cool about this data center is, now this is my personal opinion, is that we own the building and it's about 20% used. So we have this massive data center. So what we have really is a really good place to store your favorite beverage in a nice temperate climate. And then we have a lot over in the corner some servers, right? So we were in this situation, and there it's pretty easy to build a business case to just get rid of the rest, move it to cloud, or go do something else. So remove commodity hosting, right? Don't be a competitor to AWS, Microsoft. Buy into that because they are much better at hosting than we will ever be. Yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive. But with the cognitive load of also having to manage a data center in your organization, if you can free that up, that's actually more valuable, creating new things for the company. And I would recommend anyone to take that into account. And then what we aim for is cloud and edge only. Now, that might be a word that I didn't invent, but I stole and made it my own. Because what is edge? Now, we are a manufacturing company. We produce the sets that you see. So everything with the Lego brick in it is produced by us. And that is a very physical thing, as you can imagine. We also pack it and make sure it ends up at our partners or our stores. Now, we have decided to put our factories in the middle of nowhere, where there's not very good digital infrastructure, right? So I cannot service these factories from the cloud. So what did we do? Well, let's invent edge, kind of call it cloud. Kubernetes is cloud native, right? It has cloud in the word. Does that help? And then try to deliver that infrastructure service as it was a cloud provider, right? So make sure that you provide the infrastructure via APIs, automation, self-service, so everyone can consume it. I'll get back to what's driving compute to the cloud in a second. And then remember that the last server is very expensive, so the last data center server is very expensive. In our case, we had that data center at a very low capacity or utilization, and just getting out of that before it becomes too expensive. Now, quickly on the edge thing, I promised to talk about cloud, but I think this is important to recognize that not all compute belongs in cloud. I'm killing myself up here. I love cloud. What we found was inspiration from, again, Gartner, is there are 4 imperatives that drive compute out of cloud, right? And that's the way we view it. Either it goes to cloud, or it needs a really, really, really good reason not to. And that's the law of physics. Latency is a thing. For example, we would like to make, or we do quality control when a brick it can be assembled, right? These Duplo figures you can have, we assemble them. And once they're fully assembled, we take a picture of it. And then we have a compute that analyzes if it's put together the right way. And then if it's not, it discards it for human inspection. Now, we produce multiple, probably one every second per machine, per line. Now, can you imagine that if you have to send that picture, which is not a small amount of data, to cloud, wait for it to come back, and remember you are in the middle of nowhere, right? You have okay connectivity, but that's also it. And back again, right? And you have multiple lines of this. If you want to take a picture of every brick we produce, we would simply not have enough bandwidth. So there's the law of physics. There's also the law of economy. When is it feasible to use cloud? There's the law of the land. So I will not open that topic because I'm not an expert in things like GDPR. And then, of course, you have Murphy's law. So would it be okay to shut down the factory because someone dug over the fiber? Probably not. But everything else for us is cloud. Now, a little bit more details before we go to the APIs. Build for multi-tenancy. So make sure that you don't just make another data center in the cloud by making a flat network and one Azure account and let everyone build on that. But make sure that you build for multi-tenancy. And here, by automating central governance, we actually have a cloud governance product team that does that. And the task for them is to be as invisible as possible. So do the governance, but don't get in anyone's way. That is the objective. You build it, you run it. That is difficult, painful, but we have to do it. There's no choice, right? If you want decoupled teams, if you want to be able to move at speed, we have to go this way. And if you can't run your own database server, maybe you need to change your architecture or hire someone who can, right? Always and relentlessly decouple dependencies. I think, again, I'm not a network hater, but the network has for many generations been the context that provided your access security. And with the perimeter defense and firewalling you could get from central IT, you were protected internally. Now, we build everything on internet and without corporate network connectivity. So everything new goes into the wild internet, and everyone has to protect their own instance in the cloud, as you do with modern services. And then that will lead us to the isolated architecture that we really prefer. Great. We are strategically multi-cloud for the following reason, and then one. We believe that having a strong partnership with the cloud providers is tapping into their innovation. Okay, I'm going to say it. Generative AI is a great example, right? We have Bedrock coming out, and these companies are very eager to come and experiment with us. We have OpenAI, very, very strong results we're seeing on this. And this is just about tapping into innovation, just as an example. It provides us with this healthy technology ecosystem. And I cannot underpin this enough, right? We do shop around, right? We do shop between cloud providers and make sure that we are building the best possible solution on the best possible cloud fabric. And then there's something about reducing risk, right? When you're all cloud, you can, if you have just one cloud vendor, be a bit locked in. And here, being a bit tactical, the commercial leverages you have if you have just one cloud provider are very limited, because what are the chances that you're going to leave that cloud provider and spend millions of hours of refactoring, moving to another cloud provider? However, when you have 2 or 3, you can easily pivot new business between cloud providers. And you have the skills in the organization to do so. So at least from my side and from what we have done in the strategy, it is highly recommended. Now, APIs. This is important. We are API first. We like the dash first thing. I don't know if you have noticed that. APIs need to be globally available, designed for public consumption, discoverable. This one is important. And specification and contract based. So these are our core principles for APIs. Globally available, we are a global organization, right? And it's the responsibility of the API builder to make sure it can be consumed everywhere. Now, we are fortunate enough to operate within mainland China. And there you are inside or outside the Great Firewall, it's called. Actually, my Chinese colleagues, they call it that, Great Firewall. But there's a bit of a packet loss when you transfer to and from China. Let me just put it like that. I'm not sure what they do with the packages, but listen, we're leaving this topic now. Good. But that's important, right? And that's also why we have cloud providers inside of China. Now, API first, what that means for me is that that's how we integrate. And I talked about you can have north-south, so within your own product, you have north-south integrations by APIs. But when you do east-west, you start going between products. This is where it really counts, right? And in the past, what we used to see was a request and a ticket to get a cross product connectivity, so a VPN basically between. And we provided a very cumbersome process with carbon copy based forms, not in paper, almost ServiceNow, that's the same. But we made it really complex, and then at the end of the process, people had to talk to me and justify why they needed a VPN connection. And we did that to make sure that APIs are designed for public consumption. This is super easy. No, it's not. It's super difficult, but it's so easy just to default to your classic integration patterns. API needs to be discoverable. Now, this was difficult. And I have a demo in a moment. We have time. Where I will show you what we did to address this. Because everyone was building APIs, but if you can't find them, you have to go talk to Morten, or you need to have listened to this town hall or something like that. It doesn't work, right? So it might sound super basic, but it's something you need to address. And then the specification and contract based is really alluding to, please document your APIs, so you know how to get access, how to call them, how to interact with them, maybe even how to contribute towards them. Great. As we go mature, we talk about documenting service level agreements. So what can you expect of this API? What kind of redundancy can you have here? The versioning is super important because APIs are not static, right? They're not built once and never changed again. Actually, when you have everything in products, you need to version your APIs, have an agreement for what's the fair warning for deprecating versions so that you can move along. Now that sets massive requirements to your organization, because if you have dead applications, so application that doesn't have a dev team that can modernize them, that actually prevents you from deprecating old integrations. Schema-based, absolutely, and we do a lot of API linting. We have our own linting standard just to make sure that we can. Well, we don't approve stuff, right? Everything is as it is, but we can guide people to have a certain quality for APIs. And the deprecation is in the agreements. So writing all this down, we also have an API strategy, and guess what? It's open source, so anyone can disagree, contribute, raise an issue, that's okay. But it's important to write it down and iterate on it, because this is new for many enterprises. This is a new way of working, but it's massively important to achieve this greater business agility that you all want. So I thought I would show you something. And now you can choose between the duck game or the demo. No, you cannot. I was kidding. So this. Okay. Welcome to Baseplate. So those of you smiling, you know what a baseplate is. So the baseplate is in big sets, it's the bottom piece that you build upon. Now, one big problem we had a few years ago was that nobody knew how to find stuff. It could be a ServiceNow ticket to get something, or that Morten guy from before, you had to know him and he could, or something over here in another software portal, right? So the biggest frustration for our engineers was, how do we find stuff? So we decided to build Baseplate, which is a developer portal based on Spotify's Backstage. Now, we are so far down the road that you cannot see it Spotify Backstage, but it is. It's a nice way to get started, and it's open source, so we can contribute back when we're not happy, right? Extreme over, okay. Thank you. Okay, it could have been fun if you have waited like 10 minutes. Thanks. Great. So, you happy now, Baseplate? Cool. Have you seen the button up top? The chat AI, come on, people. I know lunch is waiting. We're getting there in a second, okay? So, Baseplate is our answer to not being able to find stuff. And another problem we had, I'm sure you have this as well, too many unknowns. So as a developer, how do I do this, right? Do I need to figure it out? Do I go to Stack Overflow, or do we actually have some internal documentation that easily describes that? These are still problems, even though we're 2 years into this, but now we have a platform where we can meet. So this is our developer portal. The idea is that engineers goes here to find stuff. And here we have our products, all the listed products. Let me show you one. That's called Cloud Enablement. Cloud Enablement can go in here and find all their cloud accounts between we're using AWS and Azure. They can interact with legacy infrastructure. We can see the team, etc. So let me go back here. Now, what I wanted to leave you with as we're closing this session is what we did for API discovery. It was quite fundamental to us, so I thought it was worth showing. And what we created here was an API catalog that we can go, that anyone can go and search. Now today, since it's also a cloud session, I have here the AWS landing zone, so that's a cloud account on AWS, or the Azure landing zone APIs. Our nice description, request access. This is super easy. Right? You can go and find any API, figure out what it does. It has links to the documentation, and it's super easy to get started. Except one little detail. I have to read these documents. I made it up this morning. I thought you would love to see. We were experimenting, and one of the colleagues, they challenged and said, how long does it take for you to build like a ChatGPT thingy internally using OpenAI? So our data doesn't flow back and train a greater model, right? That's the cool thing about Azure OpenAI and also Bedrock, is that our data is contained and it doesn't train the greater model, right? So that's very important for us. So we have just integrated with OpenAI here, and it knows who we are, right? It knows our context, and it has access to our documentation. So I can go, how can I get access? And it will simply read the documentation for you, summarize it, and tell you what you should do. So now you can really be lazy. Now, that has nothing to do with my talk. I was just so proud of it, and I wanted to share it with you. So let's get back to the deck. I know why you stayed, and that was, of course, because of the prices. That's where you go, no, Rasmus, that's not why we stayed at all. So before I bribe you with prices, or 4 of you at least, did you enjoy the talk? Good. Okay. Thanks for that one clap. No, hang on. I'll thank you in a second again. So listen, I need to get rid of these. We have a few minutes. Does anyone have a question before I hand out stuff? Go. Yeah. The question is, are we using API management for management and for governance, etc.? Yes, we are using Kong, and there's articles out there. I think there's also recordings of how we have adopted Kong. We did consider also Azure, AWS, and we are also using it in pockets, but we also need something that can be extended to the edge and across cloud, etc. And this was a platform we could build. So we have a product called API Management. They do that. They build the engine and the Kong engine. And then we actually have another product called API Discoverability. And they are very much into enabling the use of APIs to our standards. So we invest quite a lot of support in APIs. Thank you. Good question. Did you? Excellent question. So the question is, do we use a message broker? And messaging, at least for me, there's different ways of doing this. But we started with the API management. That was most important. And now we are also investing in message brokers. And we have that, actually we're starting up a new product team that looks after building a capability that supports that. But we're also a bit down this journey, right, of loosely coupled things. So now we have the maturity to start using a central capability for this. But we're building it like you would consume it out of a cloud provider. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the questions. I'll be around down here if you have anything else. But I know lunch is out there. You look hungry. So let's do this thing. When I click, a question appears. And then if you know the answer, raise your hand. I'll be here monitoring you and seeing who raised their hand first. Okay? So don't hurt yourself or your neighbor for that matter. Exactly. Nobody gets hurt in a Lego session, okay? That's the rule. Good. If you know the answer, and then I will pick you, and then you say it out loud. And if it's the wrong answer, I don't know what we'll do. I will be building tonight. And then there's 4 questions in all. Are you ready? I'm not convinced. You are ready, right? Okay. I'm doing it now. Oh. Okay, don't synchronize it, right? I think it was the gentleman in the dark with the green hat. Row number 2. Yes. Yes. Woo. Oh, another detail is you can only win once. Okay. I had once where I forgot to say it, and then, yeah. Okay, next one. You're not allowed to raise your hand and then lower it and then raise it again. So gentleman in the black polo, almost in the back. 91, yes, correct. Now, come on, rest of you, now is your time. What? All right, this gentleman in the middle here, yes. 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 Sorry. But then you have to build together. So this is in the shirt there, second row, yes. Yes. Woo! Okay, last one, okay? And then I'll let you go. I think we have a clear. Yes, front row. Yes, that's correct. So thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the session and enjoy the rest of your day.